You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Good evening and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. It's April the 24th and we are live here at paceradio.net. Good evening, Tamara. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you doing tonight?
No, not too bad. I'm looking forward to the upcoming week, and that is because the weather is looking really nice compared to what we've had.
Yeah, it's warming up here too, but to be fair, we need rain. Like, I'm out in BC and it's drier than a popcorn.
Oh, yeah. Well, sounds like another year of fires.
Yeah, well, Alberta's already lit up, right? And they've actually just called in Alberta that there is a fire emergency up in the north by Fort McMurray again. They're already evacuating small towns. So yeah. I'm not close to that by any means, but that's Alvin's area of employment near Grand Prairie, right? So it does kind of affect us. So we need rain, quite honestly. Rain. It's warming, but we need rain. Definitely.
We've had some good rain, but some people say we still need more. So
yeah.
Now talking about rain and raining things on you, last week we're talking about I gifted you some cannabis, sent you a little package there, but since then, wow.
Right? I know. I was sitting here at 4:20 and it was like my phone's ringing, and I had phoned them the night before because I was trying to get something lined up so they deliver. So I was, and their website wasn't working. So I phoned them and said, hey, your website's not working. I'll come in tomorrow. So I assumed that when they were phoning, it was just tell me the website was up and working, and if I wanted a delivery, that they were able to do that, right? No, I won their 420 prize. And I mean, it was, to be honest, I think it was a full 30 grams. 20 as a gift, because there was so much packed into that bag. It was crazy. Live resin and like vape tips and a hash cone and a quarter and an eighth of flour, plus a whole bunch of joints. And I've still got that blunt. There's a blunt that we haven't even smoked yet. I still got a lot of it left because there was so much of it. But I mean, like Broken Coast, Amnesia Haze, like these ones here are like, and Broken Coast, everybody, it's a pretty.
Yeah, you like them. You've given them thumbs up.
Right, when we had to do the MMPR thing, and we had to change our licensing for that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to cave, but yeah, like that's a side. And there was 3 of them in the container, right? So we got kind of spoiled, but there was one that was like not so good.
Oh, yeah.
And I really like the provider, right? They're an awesome provider. I really enjoy a lot of their other infused cannabis joints. This one was mint tea. All right. Like, it was like making my eyes water, like my nose run. Like, when you get that clearing, like you just suck
Yeah.
They must have run the cannabis and Vicks because it was bad.
Oh, well, see, it can work as a natural decongestant.
I guess, but it was a natural, like, holy freaking moly. It was like, yeah, eye watering. No thanks.
Oh, wow.
It was bad. It was. That's the only complaint I have. And I shouldn't be complaining because, I mean,
yeah. You spent a lot of years advocating for cannabis legalization, and we continue to do so.
To be fair,
like when you started doing this, you would never thought that you would be winning a prize at a store.
No, I never thought that we'd have stores.
Yeah, that too.
I remember the first time I walked into that BC liquor, like, because it's like the BC Liquor Control was the first store we ever had open in Cranbrook. And I remember the first day I walked in here, and I kind of I really didn't want to. And I left and I sat in my car and I cried.
Wow. Yeah.
Because they were doing what I had to go and sit and do 6 months house arrest for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Trafficking. Right? So I did 6 months house arrest for what they're now doing legal. Behind a counter with a tail and a smile.
No, yeah.
So that was a hard pill to
swallow.
it was tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No,
yeah.
no, I don't care.
There's
No,
a
it's like
process to get rid of that, but you have to still pay and do. It wasn't eliminated like it is in the U.S., where our guest is from, where they just sign it into law and remove it, right?
And the thing is, my cannabis possession charges, when I had a criminal record check done 2 years ago for the Ukrainian Society, we had to have criminal record checks done because we were dealing with vulnerable people, right? My cannabis possession charges were 2 of them. They were both under 7 grams. Were gone. Now, there was a appear showed in there that I didn't even remember having, right? Like I got a failure to appear, and that was back like in 90. And then but the trafficking's still sitting there, and the possession of cocaine is still there, right? So those things are there. And again, like you don't have $3,000 to have them like just suspend it.
Yeah. There's more to the story than just 4 grams.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's felony.
All right. Well, what do you say? We got a guest in?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. All right. At this time, I'd like to introduce a guest who is busy educating and advocating with veterans in the U.S. as well as from around the world. We'd like to welcome Byrne back to the Pace Radio Show. Good evening, Al. How you doing?
Hi, Al. Hi, Tamara. Nice to meet you, Tamara. I don't believe we've talked, but Al and I have had some conversations, one recently. I'm doing good. Just give you a weather report. I'm on the Gulf Coast of Florida and what we call the Panhandle down here. A lot of you Canadians come down this way, and you're never disappointed. Water temperature in the Gulf this evening is 71 degrees. Water temperature, yeah. And tomorrow probably be low 80s, very sunny, just a gentle breeze. So anyway, I just thought I'd fill in Canada on what the rest of the world
we're all pasty Canadians, and you're nicely tanned and the nice sun. Yeah, we get like that sometimes.
I was talking to Al there a couple days ago, and he says, "Boy, I can never tell you're in Canada. Look at you, you're wearing a coat."
Sweaters, our hair, like, and our faces are all white, like, I mean,
hoodie on.
Well, listen, I grew up in Massachusetts, so I know about cold.
Oh, yeah.
Not Canadian cold, but it was cold enough, and that's one reason I decided I'd get out of there. I didn't like the cold, still don't. Go south. Good decision.
I could scratch out of here. I would.
Yeah, I was thinking that I was thinking that Tamara was with me when you were on the program, but by what you said there when we came in, Tamara wasn't on the program when you were on. So this is a good opportunity, I guess, to get a bit of a background on Al as far as to let Tamara and remind our viewers and any new viewers, your background when it comes to the cannabis end of things.
Background, huh? Okay, I grew up in New England. I went to Catholic schools. I went through my entire education from first grade through college in Catholic schools, and I was never in a classroom with a woman.
Really?
Just to give you an idea of I'm old, see, I'm 81. So I'm taking you back to an era before a lot of your audience even was born, I suppose.
Yeah.
But that's
you're the same age as my dad. So yeah.
Anyway, so that's how it started. I was a really big, good time high school jock. I went to Notre Dame. I was a really good jock at Notre Dame. While there, I joined the Navy at 17. I was what they call a midshipman. I was in a reserve officer training program, training to be an officer. So when I got out of Notre Dame, I got commissioned as an ensign. I spent 2 years on a destroyer. Then I spent 2 years in Rhode Island, sort of bringing me back to New England. My wife at the time wanted that. I wasn't too happy with it, but hey, what the hell. And then I got out of the Navy. I had done 4 years active duty. I had to do 6 in the Navy. At that time, you had to do your 6. So I did the 4 on active, and I had to do 2 as a reserve. I went in the reserve unit in Boston, and I was in the reserves about 6 months before I was recalled to active duty. I was sent to Vietnam as advisor for the VNs. Was there a year. Was transferred after that to Hawaii for 4 years, which was really wonderful. Got back to New England. I went to Rhode Island again, to the Newport area, right at, it was great. It was the 200th anniversary of the United States being born. The tall ships were there. It was nice. Mid-70s, spectacular time. Left there, went back to the Seabees again. Seabees are like the Navy's equivalent of Army engineers. They're Navy rates, and they go all over the place, can virtually build anything. There were about 900 of us in the battalion. We went from, we were all over the place. We were in the Caribbean, mostly Puerto Rico. At the same time, we were also in the Bahamas and in Iceland. And then we got transferred over to the West Coast, and we were in Guam and the Philippines, in Thailand, and a little island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, 1,400 miles from any inhabited land, called Diego Garcia. A very secret base. And so I did that and then I came back to the United States and was assigned to run one of the biggest retail stores in the Navy in the outside of Seattle area, Whidbey Island, Washington. It was a huge complex, 30,000 people in the service. I had about 400 employees. I had 11 restaurants, and I had dry cleaning plants and gas stations that pumped 500,000 gallons a month. It was a huge thing. And then they transferred me there to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for my last 2 years, and went to school on high quality contracting for the government, big money, and spent the last 2 years dealing with a Fortune 500 company called Gould, managing a $1 billion plus contract. So my background in the Navy was basically logistics and or management at some higher level of management. And then I took that along the way. I stumbled into what I had known as a young man. At 21, my dad was dying of cancer, and he had lost 100 pounds. He was a mess. He was dying. He had liver cancer. He was in Boston. They were doing back then. Now this is 67. Very, very rudimentary chemotherapy treatment. I mean, now it's a little rough, but back then it was ridiculously rough. Anyway, it was killing him. So I went to his doctor. Now, the story's got this historical twist to it, but it's what it is. My dad graduated from Boston College in 1932. In the time, cannabis was a medicine. It was used all over the place. The guy that became his doctor graduated with him from BC in 32, went to medical school. I forget which one, probably around there someplace. Anyway, got out of medical school in 36 and did practice. Well, the whole time through medical school, he'd been taught about the uses of cannabis as a medicine. And when I went to him in the 60s, and he knew what was going on, and it was my dad's doc. He knew what the hell was going on, and I said, this throwing up and this he can't hold food down. He's dehydrated. Yeah. He says, try and get him some. He called it marijuana. Get him some marijuana, and see if he'll use it. And anyway, I'll shorten it up a little bit. I got some. He used it, and he stopped throwing up. He stopped being totally miserable almost before, right in front of my eyes, So
I assumed he smoked it.
Huh?
I assumed he smoked it.
He did, and
Yeah.
that we've been lucky with that because when he was in his 20s, he worked in Chicago as a salesman, and he drank and he smoked and he hung out in the speakeasies, you know, just like anybody would if you're 25 in Chicago. And so he smoked. So he had given it up long time ago. But when I approached him with I think it was the first joint I ever rolled in my life, and I gave it to him. And he could smoke it. He knew how, you know what I mean? He had that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he felt a lot better. He ate. Of course, he died very soon after that. But it left a lasting impression about how quickly, how really quickly and dramatically my dad's composure changed. It was astounding. So anyway, fast forward to 83. I'm in the basement of a university building, Case Western University in Cleveland, working with my then wife, Marilyn Latham, on her thesis. And what we had done is we had contacted NORML, National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. It was a much bigger deal then than it is now. But they still only had, I don't know, 3,000 or 5,000 paying people. Anyway, we convinced NORML to do a mailing that sent out a survey, a questionnaire to all their people, asked them to fill it out and send it back. And it was astounding. Usually when you do some shit like that, you get a response rate in the single digits. We got something like 88% of these things back. And basically, it was a questionnaire that, again, my ex-wife wanted to put a thesis to, which is, would you tell your healthcare provider, your MD, your nurse, about your use of cannabis for any reason at all? And they wrote back basically, I think it was someplace around 80% said, absolutely, I'll tell my doc or my nurse. The others, I guess, weren't so sure. So that was nice. We had some really good information there, but we got thousands of these things back. I'm telling you, thousands of them. So we sat down there in this basement for days, and I can only say in my life it was the first time I really felt like some sort of epiphany had just occurred in me. It was not what I was reading was handwritten notes from 4,000 people. They were of every sex. They were, every sex, male and female. There were, all kinds of races. They made no money.
Yeah, every religion. Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah.
Everybody. Anything you can imagine answered up. And what they said was, now this is 1983. You guys know what you know now, but back then we didn't know shit.
Oh, yeah.
So what I'm reading is, this helps me with Crohn's disease. Oh. This helps me with sickle cell. This helps me with migraines. This helps me with pain control. Now, what we knew back then was that it was a really good antiemetic. Kept people that were sick from throwing up, which was helped my dad a lot. And it was also a really good way to control glaucoma through a lower intraocular pressure in the eyes. We knew that, but we didn't know about Crohn's disease. We didn't know that morning sickness was so diminished with the use of cannabis. We didn't know that people who hadn't slept in months and years got on cannabis and had 8 or 9 hours uninterrupted sleep for the first time in months. We didn't know all that then. But in that basement, I learned it. And so what it became for me was then how do you get this information to the public?
Yeah, you see this, you've got all this information, and you just want to scream at the world, hey.
What do you do with it? You got to get it out there.
So you got to get it out there.
I used NORML to some degree. I was running NORML to a degree, and then we formed an organization called Patients at a Time. And this was the killer. This was an organization that under AMA, American Nurses Association, and American Medical Association blessings, we held conferences for doctors, nurses, PhDs, and we taught them about the therapeutic uses of cannabis. And this was accredited conferences. So a doc or a nurse got there, they got their continuing education credits for the year, et cetera, et cetera. And so the information presented was scientifically unrefutable. Mm-hmm. And that was the contest that I undertook with the federal government of the United States. My thought at the time when I was doing all this and putting this shit together was that the government of the United States has an opinion. I have science. And that science will trump them. And so we did that. Right. Then we did that. And then fast forward, that went really well. And then fast forward into 2007, I'm a veteran, a Navy veteran. As I said, I spent 24 years on active duty. And I'm continually interested to the nth degree in veteran affairs. So with another guy named Mike Kravitz, who you probably have heard of, Mike and I started an organization called Veterans for Medical Cannabis Access. And what we wanted access to was the Veterans Health Administration of the United States. We wanted cannabis to be able to be used as a medicine within that gigantic hospital organization, biggest in the world. Took us 3 years, but we did it. By July of 2010, the Veterans Health Administration, listening to us, wrote a directive, like the thing, like a law, a directive. And it said, one sentence was simply, cannabis is a medicine. And then it went on to explain that this medicine should be used correctly and just, do it right. And then I think about a year later, they did it all over again. They issued another directive, same thing, changed a couple of words, it was the same thing. So we had introduced cannabis as a medicine to the largest healthcare facility in the world, which is in the United States part of the executive branch of our government. Executive branch is the president's little quadrant. We have the legislature, who are dysfunctional. We have the judicial, which is up for grabs, and then you got the executives. So this is part of the executive branch, the branch that has withheld saying anything positive, and yet for now 14 years this July, the Veterans Health Administration has been treating veterans all over the United States, except, and I'll get to the except, with cannabis in their treatment protocols. And so think about what I just said, 14 years.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of visits of vets all over the place. And you know what? Come on. There hasn't been a single reported problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And
we would have heard.
How are they able to get access if it's not legal in every state? Like, are they?
Well, okay. Yeah, that's where I'm going with that. So I'll go there right now. The problem we have is that we have 50 states and territories. All of the territories of the United States, Guam, Virgin Islands, have enacted positive cannabis laws, and 42 of the 50 states have as well. So what we have in the country now of the United States is we have only 8 states in the United States that do not have some sort of cannabis law that's positive, either medical or totally recreational. So for veterans in those states, by the way the executive branch decisions have been made, those veterans in Kansas can't use cannabis medically and go into a Kansas VA facility and be treated as a veteran. They're told to go home.
Oh.
So that's where I am right now. My whole focus is to try and get folks to understand that we have U.S. military veterans, wounded veterans who can't use cannabis in the VHA medical facilities, not because the VA has a problem with it, only because these veterans live in a state that doesn't have some sort of positive law. I call that medical treatment by geography.
Yeah, yeah. Now,
it's immoral.
Would they not be
medically unethical? But that's where I am. So that's my history. I started out as 17, joining the Navy, and I'm 81, and I'm still very, very concerned about the inequality of my brothers and sisters.
As they always say, thank you for your service. I can say that twice because of not only for your military and the things, but also with your cannabis advocacy work.
Oh, thanks, Al. Yeah.
It goes hand in hand, right? Because when you're talking about a good medicine, veterans deserve the best, right? So they should be getting the best, and I think that's where it goes hand in hand with all service, right?
Well, yeah, it's a medicine. I mean, first of all, I have to tell these for years now. You guys can understand. I've been talking to senators and congressmen and idiots all over the place, and over, I listen to them, and they talk about marijuana, the drug, and it's like it's cannabis, and it's a friggin' plant, it grows in the ground. And God, that's hard to get through with some human beings. And they just
no critical.
It is. I know. It's they've only known the negative. That's what they were taught. Everybody, a lot of the people now, like you said, you're 81. Your dad lived in an era where cannabis wasn't illegal. And everybody else, basically most of society now is growing up knowing that only being illegal. And,
well, when you grew up in the 80s too, we had we're Canadian, but we still had the Reagan years, right? But this is your brain on drugs. And growing up with all these commercials, but this is your brain on drugs, right? So
the eggs frying in the frying pan.
You're talking about that advertisement where they're frying
pan in the eggs in the 80s, right? Because I was a teenager in the 80s, right? So again, that was all the propaganda that we get out of the U.S. comes across the border to us. So we get all this propaganda out of the States. This is your brain on drugs, and it just kind of filters up here. But at the same time, Jean Chrétien, we had we had all kinds of Ladine reports and stuff done in Canada to move forward towards legalization in the 60s, in the 70s, to have some, Republican conservative, we have them here too, trust me, that comes flying across the border with this is your brain on drugs. So we got stagnated at the same time with Reagan's messaging in the States too.
I remember those ads. I thought they were hilarious, but they worked. They worked,
Oh yeah.
And again, I got to go back to what I said earlier. The government has an opinion, and we now have science. So it's been the education of the masses, not so much the politicians, the masses, the patients, that has changed this whole discourse from where I got in, where everybody went to jail just for saying the word, to now where it's a respected medicine, So it's a sea change, and I want to tell your audience that, especially the younger folks, like this isn't over yet.
No.
There's still enough stupidity out there to keep this thing going on for a while, but you're way ahead of where we were. Don't quit, don't give up, and make sure when you say something about the use of cannabis, you say it accurately and be willing to have some science behind it. Just don't say shit. That's what the government does. It says stuff.
Well, the one good thing we can positively say about legalization in Canada is that our crime rates are down 95% for possession. And to me, that is one of the best, I think, moves forward. Never mind that people have quite a bit of access in Canada now with our legalization market. But the fact that 95% of people have not been charged with possession of any type of cannabis is the best part of legalization, I think, for me.
People aren't getting arrested as many people. 95% reduction.
Yeah, reduction.
In charges.
90%.
Well, the one thing I will give Canada credit for is the care of their military with cannabis.
Yes, absolutely.
Up in your country, a vet can get cannabis from the government. It's good stuff. It's free, and it's delivered to their home. They don't even have to go out and get it. It's delivered to them, which is what it should be.
Right.
In the United States, as I just described, depending on where you live, you can't even use it and go into a hospital.
Yeah.
So the disparity of treatment there among the military, and we all, I don't know about you guys about the military, but the members of the military of Canada are my brothers and sisters just as much as the Marines are down here. Absolutely. We have a common bond of what we do for why we do it. And it doesn't. And the injuries, I'll point out to the audience, the injuries that the modern day military has are not that much different than the injuries that civilians have.
No.
Brain traumas and TBIs and post-traumatic stress issues can come not just from warfare, but from all kinds of sources. So that, when we talk about the use of this stuff for like military, or I do a lot, it certainly is valid for civilian use. I belong to a group in it's an international group. It's called Athletes for Care. And basically it's made up of professional athletes, Olympic athletes, and college-grade athletes who have suffered in some way through their sport some sort of problem and have found cannabis to be helpful. And this just isn't football players and hockey players; it's fencers and gymnasts and swimmers.
Right.
So this whole thing about cannabis, it's a plant. It's a incredibly good nutritional source, which is another aspect that isn't discussed very much. And it certainly has pain control abilities that we all should recognize as being wonderful, because there's no side effects. There's none of that side effects that you get with pharmaceuticals. So I'm sort of diverging here, but I am the medical cannabis guy, and that's where I go with my conversations.
Oh, absolutely.
Super. And that's and that's what we need. More people who speak up, more people get educated. They speak up. It spreads like wildfire. But we have to take a commercial break right now. And as far as science, and you got a future project and stuff that you're working on, I'm going to get into that after the break. And as you mentioned, there's still lots of work to do. People still have to keep the advocacy going. So I'm going to throw a shout out there to the fact that next Saturday, this coming Saturday, May the 4th, is the Global Marijuana March being held globally here in Canada. The big one, big one's happening in Vancouver as well as in Toronto. So it'll be interesting happening. So I'm going to throw in a little promo for that. And we'll see you all after the break. This is the Pace Radio Show. We're live here at paceradio.net.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
In February of 2022, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Ted Smith were fined $6.5 million. This for helping 8,500 patients with access to medical cannabis. In our interview with Ted, he spoke to us about how people can donate to help in an upcoming court challenge. And here is part of that interview. From what I've seen lately, I believe that you've got something that you're trying to do as far as fundraising to deal with this next court challenge.
For now, people can write checks directly to Jack Lloyd Law Corporation or send e-transfers to save the VCBC at gmail.com. I guess those are the two easiest ways for people to help right now.
PACE Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Hey, welcome back. Tamara and I are joined by our guest, war vet and cannabis advocate, Byrne. Boy, I choked on that toke just before we came back live again. So now, before the break, we're talking about all the work that you've been doing, Al, your background and everything in your cannabis advocacy and with the military, the Navy, right? Going forward though, you were talking, you have a new project that you're working on with a friend of yours, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk about that. And I've got some questions for you on some of the stuff that I've already seen presented, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Al. Tamara, hi, I'm back. Casper Leitch is the fellow that I've partnered with in this particular project. Casper's background is over the last 10, 15, 20 years, he's been in the entertainment world, basically, with a website basically built around Time4Hemp, 4 being the number. And he's done a good job with presenting cannabis issues and cannabis people and conversations about hemp and about medical cannabis and about legalization, the whole concept. So anyway, while this was going on, he had the wherewithal and the brains to archive it all. Every show that he ever did, he kept. and he kept it in remarkably good condition. And a lot of what he kept, I am involved with in that I almost all of the medical cannabis interviews over the years, 300 of them. And what we did was we interviewed, one of the things I did for real is I told you we ran these conferences. Well, I got these docs and nurses and researchers coming in from all over the world. And they would give their presentations, and everybody went away happy, like I said. And I was real happy because I was giving the finger to the feds. But I was also meeting these people. So then what I did to try and, later on, you guys will appreciate this because you had a bump into TV. But so after I did 4 or 5 of these conferences, it was great. We had this wonderful conference, 350 people sitting in the room, went back to wherever they came from, and they were, pumped.
Good.
And I thought, well, that's that. Good job, Al. But there's a million people out there. So at this point in time, I decided to go video, and you can read all about this stuff. But and we did the video part live, and we did it, and then we sold it later on as educational material, and that way we got to expand the message out quite a bit. So anyway, that all started, like I said, the conference stuff started in about 2000, and I'm sorry, I sort of lost where you wanted me to go with that.
Oh, okay. With the stuff that you're doing with Casper, as far as the interviews.
Yeah. So anyway, we did all this stuff, and Casper archived it. So a year ago, I got a hold of him, and before that, Casper had been the right-hand man for a very, very leadership guru here in the United States, a guy named Jack Herr. He's the hemp man of the world. He reintroduced hemp back into the world, and Casper was his right-hand man for a decade. So anyway, Casper and I got together, and he said, "Look, you did most of the interviews. How about we take a lot of these archives and rerun them? Because I've looked at them, and the information there is PhD level and timeless." And then what we do is we interspace that. You do some new interviews with some of the newer folks, and we get it all together. So that's a Time for Hemp project. Casper has already done some remarkable editing. Basically, he's done interviews that I've done, and he's sort of taken out the ahs and the oomphs and the ads, and it's just straight up really high quality editing. And the conversations I don't remember having them. I was like, wow, that's cool, Al. You did good there.
I'm gonna bring.
It's good.
I'm gonna bring one on here to the screen. I'm gonna show here. Here's one here. Okay.
Oh, okay.
This is at Casper's website. You're talking about seminars, so on and so forth. This is called the Roots of Medical Cannabis Research. And I don't know whether you can read the guests who are involved in this episode. It's just phenomenal. The people that you've got on.
Well, I see Andy Weil there.
Yeah. Dr. Donald Abrams.
That. Oh, you're talking about that interview? Yeah. Abrams, Weil, Grinspoon, and
Raphael Mechoulam.
Yeah, Mechoulam. Rafi was in there. Yeah, it's a hell of a half hour.
Yeah, Dr. Jeffrey Harrigan, rather.
Yeah, California, great guy.
Yeah, and then a doctor from Germany, Dr. Grockenharman.
Gottenheimer from
Does it ring
Germany.
a bell?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Franjo. His first name is Franjo. Franjo started the
Yes.
IACM, the International Academy of Cannabis Medicine, and basically he was the first president, and they did everything.
Yeah, exactly.
He's an MD, speaks fluent English as well as German, and has been a leader in that cannabis medicine thing in Europe very, very successfully for 20-some years. Hell of a good guy. And he's a patient.
Legalized as well.
And he's a patient.
Yeah.
And of course,
I listened to this today.
Yeah, it's a hell of an interview.
And it was just, I was listening to these people who I was watching on videos when I was doing these educational seminars in cafes, and seeing these guys in movies, and I'm thinking, wow, now I'm sitting here listening to these same guys talking about all the benefits of cannabis, and it was just wow, I was blown away by it, and I can hardly wait to release this stuff here on the Pace Radio Network.
Yeah, well, thanks. But yeah, see, I knew all these guys, and so I'd call them up and I'd say, "Can you do an interview?" Yeah, sure, I'll be glad. You know, it was the conversations are kind of low key, I think, but the information provided is PhD level, because that's what these guys were.
Yeah,
men and women here were beyond the norm of figuring it all out. And a lot of them, like Dr. Andy Weil, I mean, he came to my call asking him for help 4 or 5 different times. I mean, he's on the cover of Time magazine 2 or 3 times, and I called him up and I said, "I need your help." "Yeah, what do you need now?" And he provided. Some of these people, they're exceptionally.
It's a gold star. It's a gold star interview. Like, this is a 5-star interview of people that you're talking to in this.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
well, it's easy when you get that kind of talent. You ask a question and just shut up. And let them
it's and as everybody can see there, you can play it on the website.
That's what Casper and I are doing. That's what we're doing. Let me finish it, and then we have Casper and I and Time4Hemp have joined up with Pace Radio, and Pace Radio is going to rebroadcast some of these archives and the new stuff, pretty much, regularly. We're working on this. We've only talked about this for a week or two, and I don't know what I'm talking about. It's all between Al and not me, just other people.
Me and Casper.
Casper and you, I guess. Yeah. So anyway,
I sent
that's
them
what
some
we're doing.
material.
We got all these archives, all this education, all this information, and we assume that at least half the audience out there has never heard this before. Yep. It's not dated. In fact, you might not have even heard about it, but it's true. It's there, and these are the guys that did it.
I would have. When I was showing the documentaries, and these people were in there talking about the benefits of cannabis and stuff, I had nurses and I had people who were like medical specialists, like sort of like on the Reiki and other ways of homeopathic medicine, come to the cafes and watch these videos with me, and they would take down notes. These are researchers and doctors that did the research. Like, you're getting it right from the horse's mouth. Like, you can't get a much better source. And I just think it's just so important. Even though some of them, like Dr. Michelin, isn't with us anymore, his education and the work that he did can continue. And this is one of the ways of doing that.
Yeah, well, it was unique, the approach of accredited conferences, and it was something that the federal government really couldn't get much involved with. and I'll clarify that. It actually, I think that we got the first one in 2000 at the University of Iowa, in Iowa City, of all places, Heartland, America. We were sponsored by the medical school and the nursing school of the university, and therefore by the American Medical and the American Nurses Association. And we kind of snuck it in there. There it was. It was done. And I had the opportunity and I took it. The University of Iowa had a student-based TV teaching program. I don't know what they called it. Didn't matter. They had cameras and they had the ability to broadcast this stuff all over the United States. So what I arranged with University of Iowa at the time was to broadcast the conference. It was 2 days, 16 hours live. And we broadcasted it live to 9 different places around the United States.
Nice.
And Canada.
Yeah.
And Canada. One of the recipients was McGill.
Oh, McGill University.
Yeah.
In Montreal.
The McGill setup was made by a doctor named Mark Ware.
Yeah.
And Mark came to us and said, I'll help. And he did. And he's been with, I've known him forever.
He's still doing research at McGill. They're still doing research at McGill University.
Yeah, Mark has spent a lot of time, I believe, with Health Canada, with cannabis and pain control.
Well, the nice thing about it right now, since we've had this review that was done just recently, Health Canada, they've been recommended that Health Canada spend more money on research for medicinal purposes for cannabis. We need them to recognize cannabis as a medicine, and they still don't. Even though they give it to our veterans, Health Canada, it's a fight. Our College of Physicians block our doctors from allowing us to use a medicine that's natural and healthy for us. So we've got a long ways to go, even though we've got legalization in Canada.
Well, Mark's your man. He knows more about it than anybody. But anyway, what we did was we tossed science in their face. We used these people that you're referring to, and but the government did try to block me. The second conference we had was scheduled for Portland, Oregon, and it was all set up. It was done with the hospital there and the nurses, et cetera, in Oregon. And at the last minute, the hospital pulled its accreditation out from under us. Oh. And the reason we found out later was the federal government, namely the White House, the drug czar, had called the CEO of the HBO that ran the hospital and told him if he actually condoned the use of this conference in one of his hospitals, that the federal government would never spend another nickel in any one of his HBOs. Oh. And that was the kind of, that happened again, just so you don't think I'm making it up, in 2010, we did our conference in Tucson. And we were sponsored by the University of Arizona's Medical School, Nursing School, and Dr. Andrew Weil's Integrative Healing School. And all went well until a month or two ahead of the conference. I got an email from the lawyer of the University of Arizona's system. I mean, the whole system, the state. And she informed me that because we were going to have the subject of cannabis on the University of Arizona campus, she was not going to allow that. And therefore, your conference is canceled. And by the way, I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks, so adios. And we found out later, I'm not making this shit up, it's in my book.
I totally believe it.
We found out later that what had happened is the White House of the United States, the drug czar office, had called this woman. As I put it in my book, I said, they found a lawyer with no balls.
Yeah.
A female, but give me a break on that. It's a pun, all right? And told her the same thing they told his CEO in Canada. They said, if you allow this conference, it will pull all the federal dollars out of your University of Arizona educational system. And this dumb lawyer believed her. But anyway, by the time she come back from vacation, Dr. Wild, the dean of the nursing school and the dean of the medical school, had convinced everybody else that the lawyer was a nut and we're going to do this, and we did it. But there's others, and I keep referring to my book, so let me brag. Other than Time4Hemp and with all these archives and all this wonderful information that I hope your audience will check out now and then, if not a lot, I wrote a book. It's and it's called For Country and Cannabis. For country and cannabis. In other words, as Al said earlier, thanks for your service, and not just the military, but the path beyond that. And thank you for that, because that's what my title means. For country. I served my country. And then later I served to indoctrinate the world, if you will, about the uses of therapeutic cannabis. So that's what the book's about. So some of these stories I'm relating, like the Arizona thing, and they're in there. And there's more.
They're all in there.
And some of them are terrible. Some of the stories of federal government, the actions they took against patients, sick people, horrible. So I wrote all that down because, as people told me a long time ago, if you don't do this, nobody else can. You're still around.
It's all part of the history of cannabis.
It is. And again, right. And then that brings us right back to Casper and I, because these archives are history. And
for sure.
Many instances, I was going to say earlier, the last interviews done with some of these folks, Dr. Grinspoon and others, it's the last thing they ever did.
Well, I'll bring this back up on the screen again here. This is on Casper's website, and this is his blogs, the Time4Hemp Seeds to Grow. And these are some of the interviews that he's rejigged and put things together. Took the ums and ahs and stuff out of it. And they're all free. You can see they're a free download right there. Peter McWilliams, a tribute to Peter McWilliams. He was a cannabis advocate in the U.S. And I'm just trying to think of the young lady's name who has been Julia, correct? Yeah. There's one with Casper chats with Tommy Chong and Tim Leary. There's the medical cannabis research one. Marijuana is good for you. There'll be an interview with Dr. Lester Grinspoon. Hemp Can Save the World. Interviews, chats with a bunch of people there. And Andrea Herman, I can remember listening to her years ago when the Pace Radio Show was on Time4Hemp. And she was a Canadian hemp farmer.
Well, I think the difference too is like the United States is like 5 times the population of we are or more.
Oh yeah.
So and it's really, I guess for me, it's kind of difficult to even imagine walking in a city that's like, because I live in a population of 20,000 people, and Calgary and Vancouver are huge to me. Or Toronto was like a culture shock. Montreal was a culture shock, right? Ottawa, all culture shock for me. From the prairie, little prairies and like Little House on the Prairie kind of. So I ended up in this. So I couldn't even imagine going to the States. I'd walk into New York. I'd probably drop dead if I was in Central Park or downtown New York. I'd probably drop.
It's so big.
It would be total culture. Mm-hmm.
All right, I see it's top of the hour. Time to take another break, and then we'll come back from there, and we'll go from there. I'm just trying to find my stuff. There we go. Off we go. All right. When we return, we'll continue our discussion. You're watching the Pace Radio Show. We're live here at paceradio.net. And don't forget, just because cannabis is legalized where you are, we still got to speak out because it still has to be improved.
Not worldwide.
Right.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Welcome back to the Pace Radio Show. Tonight, Tamara and I were joined by our special guest, war veteran on more than just one front, because he's also a war veteran when it comes to the cannabis issue. And that's our guest, Byrne. Well, Al, you've got a long history of work you've done, and you've got work that you're going to be doing more here, as you mentioned, with Casper, on getting all this archived material out there. You've been doing this, like I said, for years, and there's been interviews. It's all been radio, Pace Radio Show, Pace Radio Network, because we were doing radio. Casper was always radio. You looking forward to the transition to doing video?
Yes and no. I mean, look at me. I'm not pretty like Tamara. We have to be realistic. I've been told I have a great radio voice, so I don't think I want to blow my image.
Don't underestimate yourself. Once you get comfortable, because I started in radio too. I was the last person that wanted to put my face into video ever. I just wasn't I wasn't into it. And then it was kind of like, here we are. So don't underestimate yourself, because it'll be just fine.
I've actually done a lot of video with a lot of our Veterans Voices shows were video. In fact, maybe 50 of them, and I've done a lot of video here and there, just being interviewed by TV places and shit.
Good.
So the camera doesn't really bother me. As I said, the first conference, it helped us immeasurably because we got out in a video sense to I think it was 8 different places, Miguel. But I mean, it was all over the United States. It was University of Arkansas, University of Virginia, the entire health system of the state of Oregon was tuned into it. Everybody in the state of Oregon in the health association business could watch that conference in Oregon. So the video part of it, I've never diminished that. What we did, after a few years, I said, well, you know, I told you before, well, I got 350 people in the room and they went home educated, and I felt good about that.
Do you think it's in the States because it's a privatized healthcare system where our system's public, right? So we have, like, the government's all governmentally funded for our universal healthcare for all our hospitals. So do you think it's easier to go and do these conferences and have these associations tune in because it's a privatized care system? Because I'm not sure that the Canadian College of Physicians would do that here.
Well, I have a story in my book about dealing with your University of British Columbia about this very issue, and let's just say let's not bring it up right now because it really didn't put the Canadian people in very good. I know. But what I did, this is to get to. But wait a minute, to get to the question, what I did was I got these 350 people in the room and I said, that's a finite number. It's no good. It's not big enough. So every conference after that, we videotaped it, and we got the videotape approved for accreditation.
Right.
And we put the videotapes on 2 different sources. We put it on the University of California, San Francisco medical schools training thing. And then any doc anywhere in the world, from India to Canada, could go to that website and take a course on medical cannabis that we put together. The other place we put it was a company that is in Charlottesville, Virginia, called Scitent, SCITENT. They're a for-profit company, but they did the exact same thing. They took our information, our videos, put them into a teachable format, accredited them as we did, and sold them to doctors that wanted accreditation in cannabis research and didn't want to go, to a conference every 2 years.
Right.
So the video thing, Al, I think that was really important. And the other thing I noticed was that when we would just talk, we'd get a couple, 12 seconds on a news thing at night with a microphone stuck in your face.
Yeah.
As soon as we did something with video, we were getting 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Because they could run the video clip.
Yeah, they'd run video strips, and
Nice.
We did produce back in the 90s a award-winning video called "Marijuana as Medicine." I named it. If I had to do it over, I would have called it "Cannabis as Medicine," but it was called "Marijuana as Medicine." We won a number of awards. They showed it at the United Nations to the assembled general masses in New York. I mailed the thing, the copies of it, to at least 18 different countries. The big film festival out there in the West, Sundance Film Festival, they gave the thing a special award because they didn't have a category. They couldn't figure out where to put this medical marijuana 18-minute film because nobody had ever done anything like that. There was no. It was another one was sneaking,
breaking barriers.
We snuck it in on the feds again. They didn't see that coming. They didn't see us coming to the VHA to get that medical marijuana cannabis label in the VHA system. They didn't see that. They were fighting some other war. We snuck in the back door with soldiers. We know where to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all of this stuff is important. I think words are more important than visual, but visual does get a certain amount of attention that just straight words do not. So I think it's a harmonious thing. A little of both is probably good.
That's right. Yeah. Now, as far as your comment about look at me, do I look? I would say you probably represent one of the largest growing sectors of the cannabis consumers, and that's the seniors.
Yeah, the demographics.
Right?
More people in their senior years than anyone else.
Well, I've been smoking cannabis on a daily basis for probably 45 years, so don't look at me as average. But yeah, the over 65 group in the United States has got it. They have got the word that if you use cannabis in a reasonable fashion, your pain is modulated, you sleep better, your appetite's up, your nutrition's better, all these things we've been talking about. The older folks, they still read, believe it or not.
Right?
And the younger folks do not, but the old folks read and they listen to each other's wisdom. They look at somebody that's next to him, is 75 years old and looks pretty good. The guy says, yeah, I eat a cannabis gummy every night. And really, yeah. So they, they know how to learn. And yes, you're absolutely right. And these people, they vote. They are reasonably affluent as a class. So there is some political power there. In Florida, we had an activist now gone, but he came up with a great idea 10 years ago. He called his roving Florida educational cannabis tour the Silver Tour. He wanted red hair and silver hair. That's what the whole thing was designed for. And he did exceptionally well in county elections where there was a huge portion of elderly retirees, if you will. The cannabis issues won in the 90s. 92 yes, 8 no, that kind of stuff. Right. So the older folks have definitely got the word, as I said, especially for pain control, sleep control, bladder control. I mean,
appetite. Like that's a thing too. As you get older, I noticed that my parents aren't eating as much. My dad's diabetic, right? There's no way I could get either one of them to try cannabis. My mom worked for the RCMP, but they see what it's done for my health. So, but again, it's the appetite is a huge thing for seniors.
Yeah. I just want to go off track a little bit and tell your audience because I think it's important. We're talking Canada and the United States. Well, we should. That's where we live and stuff. But there is a world out there, and it's really quite sophisticated. And 27 countries in the world have cannabis in their medical pharmacopoeia. What that means is that their doctors and nurses and researchers could just treat cannabis like any other administrative treatment, any other herbal or pharmaceutical treatment. 27 countries. Not my waters. I'm talking Spain and France and Germany and England and Australia. I'm talking, I'm not talking Fiji, although they do too. I don't want to knock Fiji here because they're on board.
Then you got countries that name people.
Yeah, but the point is 27 countries, okay?
Which is huge.
This stuff is being used every day in these countries, and there's no negative reports from anywhere about anything. And then when you go to the distribution of cannabis drugs in Europe, it's done by one company pretty much called Merck. It's a German company. This is the fourth largest pharmaceutical company in the world. Mm-hmm. So when people start this conversation about, well, the pharmaceutical company's got nothing to gain here, well, Merck's involved up to their ass. I mean, this thing, they're distributing all the cannabis in Europe. Oh, wow. So I don't see necessarily the pharmacological industry as a whole as a negative like a lot of people do. They recognize there's profit. They produced this stuff years ago. Lilly did, and Merck did, and all these companies. They had cannabis extracts. They sold it back when my dad's doctor was in school.
Those old glass bottles that you see all the time that have cannabis.
They got that stuff. They still know how to make it.
Oh yeah.
And so anytime they can bring it back to life, there's nothing to keep Eli Lilly from putting out a cannabis project tomorrow.
Yeah, because they had it back then.
Yeah. So anyway, I just want you to remember the next time you hear the politicians say, "Well, there isn't enough study," well, he or she's just got their head up their ass. There's 27 countries that have it in their pharmacopoeia, have had it there for years. And the United Nations 2 years ago, Canada, the United States, we're part of that gig. The United Nations transferred cannabis from a very, very restrictive schedule number to no restriction at all.
Huh?
Nothing.
Nice.
Internationally, transferring cannabis between United Nation countries is just like transferring a bushel of wheat.
It is. Yeah. I know. We know that because they're doing it here. They're actually exporting cannabis from Canada to Germany and to Israel, and we know that for a fact. So.
Yeah. We have. We don't bring cannabis to our country. Our laws don't allow that, but we allow exporting. We don't allow the importing of it.
Well, years ago, I'll tell you a story, an American story, but
sure.
I was married into a family that had a wheat farm right on the North Dakota Canadian border. And it had been in this family for, a couple hundred years. It's called a pioneer farm in North Dakota. It's a sort of a hallowed term. It's like got a halo around it or something. So anyway, I called up representing the farm, the government of North Dakota, and I was trying to speak to somebody in agriculture about growing hemp in North Dakota. This was 10, 12 years ago. And I got in a switchboard, and the lady said, "Well, where are you calling from?" And I said, "I'm down here in Wapaton. I'm at this pioneer farm, the Moore Mathery farm in Wapaton." And she said, "Pioneer farm?" And I said, yeah. She said, "Okay, hang on just a minute." So this guy gets on the phone, and he gives me his name, and I say, "Hi, here's my name." He said, "What do you want?" I said, "Well, I want to talk about growing hemp in North Dakota. It's about time we make some money." And he said, "What's that mean?" And I said, "Well, look, our farm is right there on the border, and we do wheat. We've done wheat, and we do navy beans, and we do shit, but we do wheat. And at the end of the year, we make about $25 an acre. That's how a farmer makes money. A lot of acres, you can have some money." So anyway, that's what I told this guy. And he says, "Well, so what?" And I said, "Well, you're up. These guys in Canada, 50 miles from me, they're making $200 net an acre growing cannabis." And he says, "Really?" And he says, "Give me some." I said, "Wait a minute. Who the hell are you anyway?" He says, "I'm the governor." Apparently in North Dakota, if you're from a pioneer farm, the governor answers the phone. So I talked to him, and he was terrific. Don't get me wrong. The guy, again, we're talking education. He had no idea about what I was talking about, but he was smart enough to listen and learn. When we finished talking, it was quite a conversation, maybe 45 minutes. He said, "Now listen, I'm turning you over to another guy." I said, "Who's that?" I said, "It's the Secretary of Agriculture. I want you to talk to him and tell him the same shit you've been telling me." So there's a lot of people out there that are willing to learn, and the agriculture guy learned, and there's other stories. But the point is that if people understand how good this plant is, the profit in this, the governor's looking at, damn, my people can make 100 times, 200 times what they're making now, doing the same amount of work, less fertilizer, renewable crop. Damn, he was like on it, like wham. And I just don't think enough people understand the quality of this plant and its versatility.
That's
and I
huge.
want to get to nutrition. Then take me down any street you want. But
it takes pulse toxins out of soils that could be, replenishing all that dirty toxin, chemically built, burnt soil in the States. You could plant hemp through there. It would actually like clean the soil. Like it's so environmentally friendly as well. Like I don't understand. You can make hempcrete and build houses with hempcrete. There's just so many benefits to it.
absolutely, I agree completely.
Absolutely.
And there's nutrition. The first book I got involved with was 1997. You can still get it. It's McFarland Press. It's called Cannabis in Medical Practice, and it has a big subtitle. But there were 17 chapters in the book written by 13 different specialists. One of the specialists was Don E. Wirschafter, an attorney, a good friend of mine. In America, he became famous because he opened up in the late 80s something called the Ohio Hempery, where he actually opened up a museum that had all these hemp products from the past displayed, again, indicating this is not new stuff. We're not really, we're just calling it to your attention. Anyway, Donnie spent his money and he commissioned a lab analysis of the cannabis seed and the oil pressed out of it. And this report is in this book. The book costs $20. This thing's worth the whole thing right there.
Yeah.
But basically, the seed of the cannabis plant contains within it two acids, linoleic and linoleic, that are absolutely essential to human life, animal life, and it's in the exact straight up proportions that we need in the human body. Perfect. Everything just bam, it's perfect. So that in China now, our adversary, when you go to the movie theater over there, you don't eat popcorn, you eat roasted hemp seeds. That's their TV snack.
Wow.
Hemp seeds are amazingly nutritious, as is the leaves of the plant. I wanted to there's trees and there's food and there's all kinds of things that this plant can help us.
Tamara had a guest on her broadcast, Cannabis and Coffee with Tamara Wana, with a friend of hers. And I'm going to let Tamara tell the story about how important these little growths are.
So I have a friend. Well, she's actually a cannabis advocate too, who has a daughter who was a first licensed cannabis teenager in Canada. Haley has a rare form of epilepsy. So this kid couldn't even go out in public without earphones and her eyes covered and all kinds of things. Well, they put her on a special keto diet, which is actually really low in glucose, and it's like anybody else probably would like it's balanced specifically for Haley. So they're always monitoring her glucose and all these things. But they noticed with using juicing that it was benefiting her. But when they found that they could actually grow it like a bean sprout, so no more than alive for like 14 days. So you from the time
microgreen,
like a microgreen, like a micro sprout, like like the alfalfa sprout you put on a sandwich. They have found that has been most beneficial because of the acidity in it, because it's not activated and it's beneficial for the neurons in her brain for epilepsy.
A seed that's 14 days growing. That's it.
Like
14 days.
Seed, like 2 leaves, 14 days. But it's not that it's the acidity in that sprout. It's not because it's not activated either, right? So there's going to be some more stuff coming up shortly in the next near future where I can actually give some more details, and I'll probably show back on the show or this show to explain more. But she got a hold of me today, and there's more exciting news coming out.
And she's doing research on this, actual research on it.
Yeah, she has actually some doctors on board with her. So this research so this is something that's very new, but it's up and coming, and it's being researched, and possibly could be like mind blowing. Yeah,
This sort of expands on what you were just talking about there, Al, about those acids at that very early stage and how important it is. And Tamara's friend there,
she's been grasping at everything.
Exactly showing what you're talking about.
Yeah. And Cheryl's been grasping, but if you want to Google the Haley Rose Foundation, I don't think there's much on there right now, but her name's Cheryl Rose. She's on Facebook, but she is like I said, there are so many things that have changed Haley's life. And Haley's now 31 years old. She's no longer a teenager, but she was 15,
she was
14.
Sent home. She was 15 and sent home from the hospital to enjoy.
There was nothing. Yeah.
Enjoy her last days. This was 16 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
And Cheryl's done, like I said, they've done inhalation. They've done, in fact, Dr. Paul Hornsby, who unfortunately has passed away, he's a Canadian doctor, invented a nose spray that would actually pull her out of a seizure almost instantaneously as well. So, and Dr. Hornsby's got all the research. I'm not sure where we would be able to find that, but Cheryl probably has it actually. But with a nose, with that actually Dr. Paul Hornsby came up with to help her with her seizures as well. So there's some stuff being done up here, but like I said, it's the acid in that plant that's before it's been activated that's beneficial for her. And it's supposed to be with the juicing too. The raw juicing is also very, where it's not activated with no heat, just the acidity in that plant. The THCA.
Yeah. Well, seeds, you just never know. Everything that's in the seed at the beginning is there for it to start that plant's life. So it's obviously very important stuff. It starts
the agricultural work that this plant has just begun. I mean,
well, that's where she's heading with this. She wants to see it on the grocery store shelves as a health food. She doesn't want to see it behind a a cannabis gate with with taxes. She wants to see it on the grocery store shelves like a bean sprout, like an alfalfa sprout. So you can have it for your on your sandwich. And I think that's the direction we should be going. Agriculture, it's a plant, right? On both sides of the border.
Couldn't agree more. Time for hemp. That's the name of the.
That's right. That's right.
We really like the cannabis plant for all kinds of reasons. Hemp is one of them. It's very important. I mean, God.
Yeah.
I tell people if you really think about it, the Declaration of Independence was written on a hemp parchment. The first buildings in San Francisco were tents made out of hemp. Because what they did was they sold the sails off the ships that brought them there to make shelter. So the first buildings in San Francisco were hemp. They're still finding miners that left their overalls hanging in some mine 150 years ago. They go and they find one of these old mines and they find these jeans, these hemp jeans, and they're fine.
Yeah. That's why they quit using it because cotton deteriorates and hemp will last forever. There ain't no money in things you can't replace, right? It's a responsible society that we became.
But anyway, it's a hell of a good product. It's a great plant, and again, it's a plant. I got to keep reminding people it was in the United States. Well, I guess it's the world. In 2014, the American Herbal Association did declare cannabis an herb. That had always been
what it is.
Where should it go? Well, they declared it an herb, and then they wrote a monologue, which is the second largest monologue ever written about a plant, second only to garlic, on the positive uses of the plant.
Right.
And that's 10 years ago now.
Right.
So, it is an herb. It's recognized as such now by the United Nations. I just see in the future, in your country and mine, that essentially cannabis will be under the authority of the agriculture people.
Yeah. It should be.
We control all our agriculture with that department, and this is stuff we eat and we turn into medicines, and and I can't see why that won't be the outcome. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but I think that'll be the ultimate. It'll be taken out of
our hemp growers here. They have to go through Health Canada. They don't go through Agriculture Canada. They have to go through Health Canada.
Yeah,
they should be going through the Agriculture Department.
They can only
Well,
go.
it's the same way down in a lot of the states here, guys. They have to. They're dealing with health department, and again, it's a growing pain. It's 5 years ago we didn't even have this kind of discussion, right?
Absolutely.
It's
That's
a
how we
growing
started
pain.
the show.
I just think the logical place is
Right.
to be within agriculture because
Yeah.
it's a prayer.
Yeah.
Well, like I
That's
said,
right.
when you even like for you, I'm sure when you see the day that a G7 country actually legalizes cannabis, it's kind of something, historical, right? So Canada's the first G7 to actually federally legalize cannabis in the world. So that's a bonus. So I still have faith that the US will do the same thing and federally regulate and legalize cannabis.
Federally, yeah.
Yeah, well, down here we have this thing called the Senate and the House of Republicans, and
Oh, we know.
they can't get together, and they've
Oh,
basically
we watch in horror all the time.
it's just same thing. Those guys they just don't want to get along,
Oh,
They
yeah.
just don't wanna get
I
along.
know.
We watch the Moscow March there. We get your news up here. We have our own opinions.
Yeah,
Probably.
all right. Where can people find your book? Because you did talk about your book. You've got it right there on your
Well, thank you
name.
again. For country and cannabis, online it's easy. You go to Thrift Books, Barnes and Noble, Amazon Books. Just go to search. You get to Amazon Books, go to search, and either put my name in. You see it here on the screen, Al Byrne, or For Country and Cannabis, and it'll pop up, and they'll charge you a couple of bucks, and they'll send it to you that day, and you'll be overwhelmed with the information.
Just listening tonight is a
I think
good
you
idea.
You could probably get it on Audible. You should get a hold of them and have yourself record yourself reading it and get it on Audible too.
Yeah, we've talked about doing audio. I haven't got there yet, and they want me to do it again because I have this great radio voice.
Right.
And also, but now we get into studios, and I live in the middle of nowhere in Florida. I actually live in a place called Tate's Hell State Park. The story is a couple of 100 years ago, there was this guy living basically where I live right now. His name was Tate. That was his last name. And he had cattle, and there are panthers here in Florida. There are a lot more than there are now. And the panthers were taking down his cattle. So he went out with his gun and his dog, and he's going to get them panthers. And nobody saw him for a couple of days. His dog come home, but he didn't come back. And 6-8 days later, he stumbled out of the jungle somewhere around here, and there were some human beings within earshot. And he said, "My name's Tate. I've just been to hell. So I live in Tate's Hell."
That's hilarious. That's funny. Because it's funny. My great grandmother married a Tate in Canada, so my grandmother's maiden name was Tate.
Well, Florida used to be full of cattle, but anyway, that's the story around here.
And we don't think of Florida having cattle. We always just think, I guess, because I've never traveled to the States, as Texas being all cattle. But I assume that people in the States too, that far south, think we all live in igloos too still.
Yeah, there's actually a term that people in North America mainly think is a derogatory term. It's called cracker, being a cracker. And that has been, by like people that I grew up with in New England, if you call somebody a cracker, that meant they were ignorant, southerner, hillbilly,
Oh, interesting.
And down here in Florida, that's just another word for cowboy. And the reason that they get the cracker is because the cowboys in Florida, and there were cows all over the place down here from the Spanish when they brought them in.
Oh, yeah,
and these guys would use these long whips. I mean, long whips, 6-8 feet, and they wouldn't hit the cattle with them, but they'd snap it.
Crap.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And so the cowboys were called crackers.
Oh, interesting.
So anyway, there's another little bit of American history. So
here they're called rednecks.
yeah, I live in a house that's called a cracker house, and it's not a derogatory term down here. It means it's a house that people would have built the shape, the architecture of it, like a couple hundred years ago. Yeah.
That's super interesting. See, you know, that's the thing that we don't hear a lot of, past history and stuff about the States. You just get, kind of wish-wash of things. It's very interesting to hear stories directly from you.
Stories. Yeah.
In this area I live in.
All right, Al.
Oh, you got
time's up.
Okay, good. I got to go to bed then. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we got a couple of minutes, but there is a broadcast that is following us, so I do have to cut us off at a certain point. So keep going. Tell your story.
No, I just thank you for this conversation. I appreciate you letting me bringing up these different subject matters. I do think that both our countries, the people of our country, need to get better educated, pass information along, learn. I mean, actually take some time to study, to listen, to go back to these archives and listen to what these men and women who spent their lives figuring this stuff out have to say, so that when you go and talk to your doctor and your nurse, you can educate them. Keep in mind, folks, when I started this stuff in 2000 in the United States with the first accredited conference, that was the first time in modern history that a doctor or a nurse had that type of instruction since 1930s.
Yeah, that's so disheartening that
it's just all gone away. Now we have about half of the medical schools and about half of the nursing schools in the country have courses on the use of therapeutic cannabis and, most importantly, the endocannabinoid system, which we didn't even touch tonight.
Yeah.
So that the education is growing, but I just urge you, if you can, to talk to your doctor, talk to your nurse, talk to anybody and say, hey, give it a try. It can't hurt you. Be modest and moderate in what you do, and you'll be fine.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like our stigma, I think, is, after 5 years of legalization in Canada, is easing somewhat.
Yeah, this is a learning curve.
I know in my early days of my illness, I'd always talk to the nurses when I was at the hospital or something like that, or when I went to see a specialist, anything like that, any medical appointment. I'd always make sure that they knew I was using cannabis as medicinally, and in order to help educate them. Some of them I took books to, gave them magazines, Treating Yourself magazines or whatever. Educate them. Spread the word, right?
I've done that my whole life too. Any place I could say to somebody in the medical community, hey, I use cannabis and it's good for me. I got a few rejections, but most of the 99% of them said, what goes on? They want to know. Especially nurses.
Yeah.
Especially nurses.
Yeah, and some of them would tell me. Some of them would tell me that they say, I know some older people that are patients that they consume medicinally, but they would it was sort of quiet, because they were sort of not everybody was staying in the cannabis closet then.
Well, remember when we fought for Lisa Kirkman to be able to use her vaporizer in the hospital and medicine? And she had to use my vaporizer, and they'd take it apart, make sure it was all safe. And then after that, it was a while, but I think there was a few other patients that were told no, they couldn't. And then they made legislation change the rules and the policies so that you couldn't use it. Okay, fuck.
Yeah.
Right.
There was this scent free. Couldn't have any scent or smell, and even with the volcano, even though there's no smoke, there's still an odor, or a bit of a smell.
Right.
All right. You're frozen. At least your face is frozen there, Tamara.
I know, yeah. I did that during the break too. It was like I was all buggered up. I had to leave and come back.
Oh, yeah, that's why you disappeared for first grade. Correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be nice that if patients somehow could get access to cannabinoid therapy while they're in a hospital.
I'm
It doesn't
interested to look.
necessarily mean that they have to smoke, but being able to have access to it.
I'm interested to see if we can find an old medical journal from the 30s. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's Google and just see if we could find something. I'd be interested to read that because I know that Jan, Jade Ridge's partner that passed away, he was doing courses for accreditation in Canada for doctors before he passed away too. So, and then again, Mark Ware, I'm not sure what that he's done that as well. But I know that some of the doctors here do take
Mark did a pain study on patients on smokable cannabis to deal with patients. He had 21 participants in the study, and it came out with a positive result. I can't remember all the numbers and all that, but it came out as a positive result. I know I used that study and sent it to my MP at the time, who was a conservative member, and he wrote me back and told me that nice study, but it's not big enough, and didn't mean anything. Yeah.
Right. I know, like, and that's the thing. Before they didn't want to hear it. Now I think it's a little, like I said, the stigma's worn off of it.
Yeah.
Well, the two U.S. studies on smoking and cannabis, the first one was presented at one of my conferences again in 2008. The professor and the researcher was Donald Tashkin. He was the head of the pulmonary department of UCLA. He's a professor of medicine, and he was hired by the federal government to do a smoking study on over 30 years on patients that were in 4 categories. People that smoke cigarettes and cigars, people that smoke cigarettes, cigars, and cannabis, people that smoke only cannabis, and people that smoke nothing at all. At the end of the 30-year period, he presented at my conference that people that smoke cigarettes and cigars are going to get lung cancer and COPD just like they say you are. The same would be for the people that smoke cigarettes and cannabis. They were going to get COPD and lung cancer. The people that smoked only cannabis in the study, about 3,000 of them, nobody had lung cancer and nobody had COPD, which was a better result than people that smoked nothing at all. Fast forward, that was 2008. Fast forward to May 2023, a study by UCLA, same outfit, 7 years this time. And they did basically Tashkin study all over again, except this time they actually let people with COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, into the study. So they went 7 years this time, same categories, same result. You smoke cigarettes, cigars, and cannabis, you're going to get lung cancer, you're going to get COPD. If you smoke nothing, you're probably going to get something. You ought to smoke cannabis because nobody in the study of 7 years got lung cancer or COPD. And the people that went in with COPD came out cured of the disease.
I've heard that several times.
The bottom line is cannabis kills cancer cells.
Yeah, I've heard that several times. We have
Dr. Taskin's reports. He's one of my doctors in my research department of the on the PACE website, and sharing that report with so many people, it's so important because of the results of the study. You know, when people who smoke cannabis get less cancer, lung cancer versus people who don't smoke anything at all.
Right.
It's got obviously there's benefit there.
The government thought that the result would be different. And when Taskin came out with it, that's why he did it at my conference. Because he knew if he could do it at an accredited conference, it would be videotaped, it would be, blessed and stamped by the AMA, and they couldn't overpower him. But they expected, of course, you smoke pot, you're going to die, and it didn't happen. It was the other way around. And that's why the government you talk to somebody in the government about this, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. What are you talking about?
Like 2005, I was using Ventolin and Advair for asthma. I haven't used Advair or blue Ventolin puffer and almost 10 years because I smoke cannabis and my lungs are clear now. And they don't, and the only explanation is my consumption of cannabis.
Yep.
And the chiropractor laughed at me when I told him that. He's like, "That's not possible." I says, "Well, I'm just telling you. I was using it on a regular basis. I had to take Advair and Ventolin because I had asthma, and now I don't."
I just had my lungs x-rayed because my new doctor was concerned that I had been consuming cannabis basically daily for over 20 years, and the results come back clear. There was nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you'd be fitting right in with Tashkin's and UCLA's data. I mean,
they don't want to listen. They don't want to listen to a case study, right? And that's the thing. I don't know how many patients. There's 45,000 licensed cannabis patients in Canada that all have a testimonial, but apparently a case study in Canada doesn't warrant Health Canada recognizing cannabis as a medicine. It's mind blowing.
Well, the thing is another thing for you folks but you just, Tamara just gave us what the politicians and the naysayers would say is an anecdotal story. About her use of cannabis and how it helped her. And if you ask Dr. Ware what that was, he'd tell you it's an N of one study, one being one patient. And so, verbiage in this discussion is huge. And that's why, again, radio is important because you can teach people the right words. It's cannabis, not marijuana. I mean, just for a get-go. So the notion that you have an anecdotal story is just absolutely bullshit. What you have is an N of one study where you could say to your physician, "I'm sick. I'm doing this. I'm not sick anymore." That's an N, and there's millions of them.
Yeah.
And the press and the public say, and the press and the politicians say, "Oh, that's an anecdote."
Yeah, and that's what I don't get that because, like I said, each story, each testimonial is a case study. End off, right?
It's data. So don't let these guys get away with this stuff. Even the newspaper print. I've been notorious with my colleagues because I write these horrible, scathing letters to the editor, telling them what an idiot they are, that they actually repeated this bullshit. And my colleagues will say, "Well, they're never going to print that letter." And I've told them time and time again, I don't expect the editor to print that letter. I expect him never to print the bullshit again. And they don't. And you just have to call them out. You have to say, "We're watching you. The information is wrong. You're a public servant. You're supposed to be a journalist with quality. Live up to your reputation." Call them out.
Yeah.
I will give CNN some credit. They have done some pretty good documentaries on cannabis as medicine and psilocybin a little bit. Anderson Cooper, he's done some pretty good work on the benefits of medical cannabis in the States and psilocybin as well. So I will give them that little bit of credit.
Well, if you got another minute, I'll tell you a psilocybin story. I had, I don't know why, but for 10, 12 years, I had these headaches they call cluster headaches. They're like migraine headaches on steroids. They're just friggin' awful. The way I described it is when those things come on, somebody took a knife, jammed it in my right eye, and just kept twisting it around. It was just awful. So I got put on all the stuff, and I carried around an oxygen bottle. That helped sometimes. But it wasn't going anywhere. And finally, I appealed to a friend of mine, a man you probably have heard of, a doctor named Ethan Russo.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And Ethan and I did a lot of work together, and we were buddies. And I called him up, and he's a smart guy. And I said, "What?" And he said, "Can you get a hold of some psilocybin mushrooms?" I said, "Yes, I can." I was in Virginia. And I got the mushrooms, and he said, "Okay, here's what you do. Get the mushrooms, and when you feel the aura of these horrible headaches coming on. It's like my body all of a sudden wasn't right. And then within a minute, I had this friggin' head cake." So what he's saying, when you feel that shit just when it's coming on, take these mushrooms, chop them up real good, swallow them with grapefruit juice. He wanted me to use a high acidic grapefruit juice and see what happens.
Breaks
And
down the stomach.
I did that, just as he said. And that was the last headache I had. That was 24 years ago.
Wow.
Wow.
One treatment. To make it better, I told Ethan it worked. He said, God, man, I'm glad. He said, listen, I got a doc friend here. He was in Missoula, Montana. I said, have you got some of them mushrooms? I said, sure. Can you send them to her? Yeah. So anyway, I sent this doc in Missoula the mushrooms. I called her up and I said, here's what I did. And she said, okay. So she did it. She called me back. It didn't work. I said, So she got another headache. She tried it, and she hasn't had one either now for 24 years.
Oh, there you go.
So I believe you don't have to convince me about psilocybin mushrooms. There is a healing power there that is extraordinary. And I'm in.
Yeah, we'll discuss that in our next interview. Right. I'm looking at the time. I can't really extend this much more because there is another broadcast coming on. So we have to get out of the way for that. So shout out time, person, place, a thing, website, anything like that you want to throw out there?
No, go look at the archives at Time4Hemp. They'll be growing. You'll see them on Pace. You'll hear them in Pace Radio. We're gonna copycat each other there. And then if you really want to know a lot about cannabis and how it kills cancer and how it does a lot of wonderful things, just read my book. And there's a history there that if you're a retailer or an activist and you don't know what's in that book, then you're not a phony, but you just don't know what you're talking about. And in this game, you really want to know what you're talking about. Who did it, why, and how. Yeah. And that book it's 360 pages. It's not for lightweights. But you learn so much. I hope that you'll take that education and give it to others.
What's the name of the book again? What's the name of the book again?
For Country and Cannabis.
There we go.
And you can find that at Amazon.
Books.
Yeah, and thank you again for your service on both sides of the thing. But being a cannabis warrior, thank you, and for all your service for your country. And thanks for coming on our show.
My pleasure.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Just so you know, you can find the Pace Radio Show. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Thanks go to our sponsors, the friendly folks at legacy420.com, Limestone City Hydroponics.ca, and the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop in downtown Campbellford. And they're expanding, just so you know. They're going to add in I don't know if it's public or not, but they are expanding. And a big thank you to you, Al, for coming on here, talking to us tonight, and as Tamara said, for all your service as well. And thanks, Tamara. We'll see you next week for sure. And thanks to our people who's tuned in and watched the program, and to all those who'll be watching the podcast afterwards. Thank you, and good night. I got to find the closing. There we go. Bye-bye. Let's share Pace everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.